Hello and welcome to another CBits Tech video. This is two of the same new old stock cassettes, which are fairly unusual. That will be the next cassette video I do, but this one is new old stock and this is quite old. It's quite a common make of cassette, but it's for a specific purpose. And here it is. It is a TDK personal computer cassette, PC15. So these are 15-minute cassettes specifically for using with 8-bit 1980s computers to store the programs. Back in the day, especially in the UK, most computer programs in the early 80s came on cassette. And you played them in a cassette player, and that cassette player was linked up to the computer itself, and there was an audio data on the cassette, and that is what stored the data. That's what stored the program. And you'd press play on your cassette player, and a wire would link it to the computer, and the computer would read the data in via audio. I might, if there's enough requests for it, then I might find a genuine old 1980s computer tape and let play it so you can have a listen to it. But these cassettes, typically a shop bought cassette for recording music on would be 60 or 90 minutes long, but these were 15 minutes long. And the plan was to have maybe one or two of your programs each side. So your program, your actual app as we call it now, might be say 4 or 5 minutes long, 3, 4 or 5 minutes long. You'd record it onto your cassette, then you could load it back into the computer another time. And this being 15 minutes long would have 7.5 minutes each side. And then you could easily fit 2 or 3 programs on there. You wouldn't want it any longer because you could, although you could put more programs on it, there was no reliable way of finding the end of one program and the beginning of another program. You could use a tape counter on your cassette player, but then if you use a different cassette player later on, the tape counter wouldn't match up. So if you had lots of money, you'd buy several of these, and if you didn't have a lot of money, like I didn't, you'd get a C60 or C90 and you record lots of programs on that cassette. But it would mean a lot of fast forwarding and rewinding to get to the right part for the program you're actually trying to load into your computer. So let's have a look at that. Several different languages, but let's have a look at the English. You can stop and read that. Now there was a rumour, I don't know how true it is, I'm going to open it now. There was a rumour that these were thicker tape. I don't believe that that was the case. I think they were just shorter tape in the cassette. Thicker tape would be, you know, said to be higher quality, less likely to break, but I don't think it needed to be much in the way of better quality. So long as there were no dropouts, you're all right, because the basic recording and playing back, as it's sort of the saving of your program and the playing back of your program on to cassette, it needed to be fairly good quality, but it's you weren't using a good quality cassette recorder. Let me show you. So this is a typical cassette deck that you might have used back in the 80s to record to save your data on, and these were really bad quality. You'd put your cassette in there, you'd press record and play to save your program onto the tape, and you connect it via the microphone there, and that will be connected to your 8-bit computer. Sometimes you had a remote cable built into the same cable, and the remote was a way of stopping and starting the cassette automatically from the computer. So in this case what you do is you record past the leader, which is a non-recordable part on your cassette. This is a really short leader actually, because many people would forget to do that, I guess. So your recording will start quite quickly. So you'd forward it to there, pop that in now, you'd press play and record, which would put the recorder into record mode. But if you're using the remote wire there, it wouldn't actually start to record onto your cassette. So what you do is on your 8-bit computer, say you had a BBC Model B computer or a Beeb, you type in save, you'd have all your program typed in, you type in save, space, quotation marks, then your 8, it was either 7 or 8 character maximum file name, and then quotation marks. And then as you pressed enter on the keyboard, the computer would then switch the remote control on here, so your cassette would would record from that point. And when it finished saving your program onto tape, it would automatically stop the tape, and then you press the stop button and eject it out. And then to load it in again, you'd simply do the reverse, but you do load and then your file name in quotation marks, or chain with your file name in quotation marks, and chain just meant load and play. So this is a really nice cassette, and I've bought this for a specific reason. So what I'm going to do is, these two cassettes are both the same. These are also computer cassettes, but they are visually more interesting, but not quite as good as this TDK. So what I wanted was a couple of cassettes which were visually interesting, which I could record for demonstration purposes. And this one I'm going to use as possibly a speed calibration tape. I might put a metronome recording onto this with 1 tick per second, and then I can play that on a digital device and then play this in the cassette player and adjust the speed of the cassette player so the two metronomes match, and that will give me the right speed. I've got a quartz lock deck, so I can record onto this with an accurate speed. So very nice. Let's have a look at the J card and the label. So we've got A and B side that you can use there, and spare ones just in case you wanted to, you've changed your recordings, want to take those off. And there's your positions for your counter. So it might be the start there. There's a counter. There's not a counter on this one, but it was just like a mechanical counter that went up to 999 usually. So yeah, so you'd put your title for your first piece of software on there, and then the counter would be, you know, assuming you started it from the beginning of the tape, it goes through the leader, the counter might be 4, so it would be 004, and it would count up to say 089 for the first program, and then the next one would be 095 to 123 or something like that. Nothing on the back of it. So look at the case. So TDK were quite a respectable brand, probably one of the most popular brands. That's nice, isn't it? Upside down, but one of the most popular brands back in the 80s for recording. It's nice to have new tapes to open. So this one cost me £5. I think this was £5 including postage. I'm not sure, but I'll put it up on the screen now. Oh, that's so interesting. So this might be tape number 030, the date. The system would be probably the model of computer you had. You might also put, if you say you'd expanded the memory on it, you might put 64K if it was a really long program instead of 32K, which was the default for the computer. The language is most likely to be the computer language, so it might be BASIC, it might be BBC BASIC or machine code or Sinclair BASIC or whatever. This, I think, would be an index card. What's that saying? Yeah, so what you get is you get a box, like a card index box on your desk, and you'd have this J card would stay in the cassette box with the tape, and then you tear this off, and that would go in your card index system. So you could say, right, I need to find my copy of Planetoid, and you flick through your card index system until you found the Planetoid card, and you say, ah, right, Planetoid is on tape 023, and then you go to your tape library and pull out your tape, pull out the correct tape. So here's all the marketing. Yeah, short leader is employed to give immediate recording and playback facility. It takes long enough to save and load these games anyway. You don't be waiting 10 seconds for your leader to go through as well. Very nice. Okay then, you can pause that and read that if you want. And that is going to be it. So I now am going to stop recording because my favourite Security Now podcast is going live and I want to see the pre-show live. And I'll do the other cassette opening next, and you'll see that probably in a week or two as well. Thanks a lot. See you in the next video. Geez, there's a cat lady outside calling a cat. These